Hello, I'm O Speaks. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, share. Today, I wanted to complete what I was going over the other day with the Zelenskyy versus JD Vance and Donald Trump incident that happened. I really wanted to do this because I think more people need to know the context and understand the context. It will be more of an educational live with a little bit of history and opinions from around the world, not just here. Um, what we're hearing right now, depending on who you watch, you're going to get two completely different stories because you have propaganda going on both sides. People who are pro Ukraine are saying, Putin is the worst human being that there's ever been. And then the people who are pro uh, isolationism are saying this has nothing to do with us. And I fall into that category. So, in case you don't know, I always let everyone know I lean to the right. And the reason I do that is because I want you to know where I'm coming from, but at the same time, trust that what I'm saying. Let's put it this way: it's easier to trust what I'm saying, I believe, if you know where I'm coming from, than if you were to watch the mainstream media and find out after the fact, like what we saw. Miss Phoenix Rising, how you doing? How you doing? Miss Just J, Paul Thomas, how you guys doing? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm trying something different using the iPod, or what do you call these? The eye ear things, um, because it sounds better in here than with these other ones. And these are Apples too, but I don't like. It feels weird having these things hang down. So I'm trying these instead. Anyway, what I wanted to do here, you just fine, perfect, beautiful, beautiful. What I want to do is I want to start off with just a brief history on what's going on and where it came from and why we are where we are. And there's a man. His name. He's a Harvard professor, or he used to be a Harvard professor. He's a Columbia professor, Columbia University. He's a Harvard PhD, and he worked for the UN as an advisor, Secretary General advisor of the UN. So he knows a lot about this topic specifically. Now, he's a globalist. So keep that in mind because globalists they're the ones who are all for world economies and trying to get towards a single treasury, stuff like that. I'm not for any of that, but it is in his interest to get peace because at the end of the day, he wants peace. And now he also was very flawed during COVID. So if you recognize him from those days, again, he's a globalist. He was protecting what he thought was protecting the image of all these governments doing what they did. Whether you agree with it or not, I definitely didn't agree with that. But again, his intentions are peace. That's the most important part. So I want to start with that video. Ukraine. All right.
Not an attack by Putin on Ukraine in the way that we are told every day. This started in 1990, February 9th, 1990. James Baker III, our Secretary of State, said to Mikhail Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch eastward if you agree to German unification, basically ending World War II. And Gorbachev said, that's very important. Yes, NATO doesn't move, and we agreed to German unification. The U.S. then cheated on this, already starting in 1994, when Clinton signed off on basically a plan to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is when the so-called neocons took power. And Clinton was the first agent of this. And the expansion of NATO started in 1999 with Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. At that point, Russia didn't much care. There was no border other than with the Königsberg, but other than that, there was no direct threat. Then the U.S. led the bombing of Serbia in 1999. That was bad, by the way, because that was a use of NATO to bomb a European capital, Belgrade, 78 straight days to break the country apart. The Russians didn't like that very much. But Putin became president, they swallowed it, they complained, but even Putin started out pro-European, pro-American, actually. He asked maybe we should join NATO when there was still the idea of some kind of mutually respectful relationship. Then 9/11 came, then came Afghanistan, and the Russians said, yeah, we'll support you, we understand, to root out terror. But then came two other decisive actions. In 2002, the United States unilaterally walked out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. This was probably the most decisive event, never discussed in this context. But what it did was trigger the U.S. putting in missile systems in Eastern Europe that Russia views as a dire, direct threat. In 2004-05, we engaged in a soft regime change operation in Ukraine. But in 2009, Yanukovych won the election and he became president, and in 2010 on the basis of neutrality for Ukraine. That calmed things down because the U.S. was pushing NATO, but the people of Ukraine on the opinion polls didn't even want to be in NATO. They knew that the country is divided between ethnic Ukrainian, ethnic Russian. What do we want with this? We want to stay away from your problems. So in February 22nd, 2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych. A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it. And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now, between her and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, who's a senior State Department official till today. And they talked about regime change. They said, who's going to be the next government? All of this is to say, the U.S. then said, okay, now NATO's really going to enlarge. And Putin kept saying, stop. You promised no NATO enlargement. It's been, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, 7 more countries in the not 1 inch eastward. And then, okay, it's a long story, but the U.S. kept rejecting the basic idea, don't expand NATO to Russia's border in a context where we're putting in goddamn missile systems after breaking a treaty. 2019, we walked out of the Intermediate Nuclear Force Treaty. On December 15, 2021, Putin put on the table a draft Russia-U.S. security agreement. You can find it online. The basis of it is no NATO enlargement. I called the White House that next week after that, begging them, take the negotiations. Putin's offered something, avoid this war. Oh, Jeff, there's not going to be a war. Announce that NATO's not going to enlarge. Oh, don't worry, NATO's not going to enlarge. I said, oh, you're going to have a war over something that's not going to happen? Why don't you announce them? And he said, no, our policy is an open door. This is Jake Sullivan. Our policy is an open door policy. Open door for NATO enlargement. That is under the category of bullshit, by the way. You don't have your right to put your military bases anywhere you want and expect peace in this world. They turned down the negotiations. Then the special military operation started. And 5 days later, Zelenskyy says, okay, neutrality. And then the United States and Britain said, no way. You guys fight on. We got your back. We don't have your front. You're all going to die. But we got your back as we kept pushing them into the front lines. That's 600,000 deaths now of Ukrainians since Boris Johnson flew to Kyiv to tell them to be brave.
All right. So why did I just play that? Let me get rid of this. I play that because I wanted to give you guys context as to where we are now and to understand when Kamala Harris went there and said or hinted at making Ukraine a NATO ally. It's on the back of all of this. This is why that was so important. And I realized I never really explained that when I was talking about Kamala, when we were leading up to the election. But the reason why that was really, really bad, what she did, is what you just heard. Years and years, over a decade of us saying, we will not expand NATO. We will not expand NATO. We will not work toward your borders, Mr. Putin. Before that, Mr. Gorbachev. Who else? I don't remember the other. There was another president in between there. But we kept making promises and then breaking it. And we finally end up in Ukraine putting missile systems right next to Russia. Imagine if Mexico, no, even better. Imagine if China was in Mexico putting missile systems in Mexico City, Tijuana. Would the United States allow that? Now, imagine if Russia kept doing it and building up its force, and we kept saying, hey, knock it off, knock it off, knock it off, knock it off. We would be justified in going in and getting rid of all of it. And that's the situation that Russia's in now. I'm not sympathizing with Russia. What I'm saying is this is way, 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 way more complicated. Way more complicated than it's being portrayed. Because right now what it's being portrayed as is Putin evil, invade Western country, bad, evil dictator, tyrant. And that's just not the full context of what's happening. Because Zelenskyy is equally as corrupt as Vladimir Putin. Now, he may not be the same level of tyrant, or we'll just say, I don't want to say sociopath, but Putin doesn't care. He just doesn't care. Zero empathy, we'll say that. If people die, they die. It's like the Russian in the old Rocky movies. You will lose. If he dies, he dies. Like, he doesn't care. Zelenskyy is a different type of mini tyrant in that he's so corrupt, he's willing to have his soldiers go in and die. And he's willing to keep it going just so we keep funding him and his war continues. He thinks he can win. I don't think he has ill intent when it comes to winning the war. But I think that he's so narcissistic and he is contributing to what's going on right now. He's probably the worst person right now for peace. And we saw that. That's what we went over in my last live. And I'm glad I got this little bit of time. And I apologize for this late live and a couple days after I said I was going to do it. But I really want to get this done before I leave town because I'm going to be traveling a little bit. And it's just watching the media spin it is really, really frustrating. And then see, Paul said, for some reason, liberal people think Zelenskyy is a good man. He is not a good man. What's going on, Vibe in my lane? It's just not true. He's not a good man. He is just as big of a problem in this whole thing as Putin is. Because again, if China were placing missile systems and weapons and training Mexico, we would have a problem with that because that's on our border. Ukraine is on Putin's border. You guys just saw, I just gave a little history of Putin begging the United States, hey, knock it off, please. Please, this is not good. You're threatening us. You're going against our treaty. So I don't know if you guys remember when Zelenskyy was arguing with Trump and Vance, he kept saying, we had a treaty with Putin and he broke it. Yeah, well, okay. We broke a treaty with Putin. That doesn't mean we don't start from scratch and try to start over. And according to everyone around Trump, during his first administration, Putin never broke a promise. So we need to look at this through a different lens. Stop watching the news and just assuming what they're saying is true, because you have the other side who says Zelenskyy is just a full tyrant, but they kind of sympathize with Putin, and I don't understand why, because he's not a good person. But it's two things can be true at once. Putin be correct and Putin be bad, And on the other side, Zelenskyy we'll just say a victim, but still be bad. And we have two parties right now that are both bad. And we're just picking. We've always done this. What's going on, K Soprano? So it's way more complex, way more nuanced, and I don't like how it's being portrayed, which is why I kept saying during my live when we were going over their breakdown, I need to go over the aftermath, and I want to give more context to this because it's not simple. It's not black and white. But I hold firm that our money should not be paying for this. It's got nothing to do with us. The only thing it has to do with us is we have weapons in their country. We have biolabs in their country that we shouldn't have. But we also have pride, and we have a CIA who insists on flexing, and they have an ego, and they're trying not to allow Trump to pull out of here. And what they're doing is they're helping the other side. That's why you see those Democrats booing Trump before his speech was like, what is going on here? It was so bad. I don't know if I'm gonna do a video on that because I think everybody saw it, but they wouldn't stand and clap for anything. When he talked about Jocelyn being the new face, not face of, but the name of the reserve in her hometown, they were almost upset. Like, how do you get mad when you have an illegal alien who unalived and R-worded a little girl, and Trump says, we're going to name this wildlife reserve after this girl? They're just sitting there like this. The little boy with cancer. They're just sitting there like this. Like, that shows what kind of tribalism we're dealing with here. This is different. I don't know what this is, but when one side can't when they can't acknowledge something good because of the guy saying it, that's a problem. I think it was Gw who said, this guy could cure cancer and they would find a problem with it. And that's not good for the country. And it's actually evil if you really think about it, because you're putting your ideology over everything, including the country, which means, why do you have an ideology? I'm not missing the fights. I never miss fights. I'll be watching them. But yeah, so it's frustrating to listen to. It's frustrating to watch. And I want to give this context. So with that said, I believe Zelenskyy planned what he did. He knew what he was going to do. And I have two short videos that show that he knew what he was going to do. One of them is really, really annoying. And it's all in Russia, but I'll put it individually on the big screen. So that, let's see, I'll put it individually on the big screen so you guys can read it, so I don't have to stop it and read it. But it's weird. It's really weird, especially when he laughs. Just keep that in mind. Remember what I'm saying. He's going to laugh at one point, and you're going to be like, why is that funny? It became funny when it all backfired on him, but he's not a good person. The corruption is real. I showed you guys. I've done 14 videos on this guy. I know about this topic. But yeah, so let's play this guy. He's not a good person.
Перше, сильна Україна. Вона повинна бути сильною для будь-якої дипломатії. Хочу ще раз це підкреслити.
Але США не лише потенційний посередник в переговорах. Це країна, яка надає величезні обсяги допомоги Україні і яка може спонукати нас до того, щоб ми сіли за стіл переговорів. Який меседж ви отримали від Дональда Трампа під час тих контактів, які у вас з ним були? Тобто як він каже? Він каже, я стану президентом і сідайте за стіл переговорів. Як це виглядає?
Я думаю, що він так не каже.
So, she says Donald Trump is promising that he's going to sit down and negotiate. And what does he do? Look at his face. He's laughing. No, he didn't say that. He's so confident and so arrogant and so spoiled and entitled because he's used to Biden saying, we're all in. No matter what happens, we're all in. That when she says, hey, this is Trump now we're talking about here. He says he's going to sit down. Look at him laugh. We're talking about death. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of lives gone. And he thinks it's funny at the thought of negotiating and stopping that. This is why I say he's not a good person. What she's saying here, what message did you get from Donald Trump during these contacts that you had with him? She said, I mean, he says, I will become president and sit down. Hold on, let me go back. This is way harder. Oh, sit down at the negotiating table. What does that look like? And he's laughing like, yeah, that ain't happening. So he knows he has no plans on peace. He has no plans on peace, which means he needs you to fund it. So what does he do? He waits till what he thought was an opportune moment to make a case to the American people about how it's so sad, it's so hard. He's taken 20,000 of our babies and renamed them and changed them to Russian. Look at all these pictures. These are our soldiers. Look what they're doing to our soldiers. Right here, he's laughing at the thought of negotiating, which means he has no plans on ending this. This is a propaganda war. And he's laughing at the thought of stopping it. Absolute disrespect. Absolute disrespect. Why is that funny that Trump said he wants to sit down and negotiate? He thinks he just has a never-ending supply of weapons and money. And it's just going to keep going on as long as he says he thinks he has the cards, as Trump put it. Like, you don't have any cards. What are you doing? You're gambling with millions of people's lives, potentially World War III, and he does not care. He doesn't care. I've seen people say he's literally selling the. Yeah, of course they are. So let me read this first. I've seen people saying he's literally selling U.S. arms, tanks, and other resources to Africa. All right. Every year, they sweep his entire cabinet because of corruption. Several of the people were caught selling the weapons that we're sending to him and supplying to him to supposedly protect his country and protect his borders. Does that make sense to you? So he's selling arms and stuff to another country for more cash, as if the billions that he's gotten is not enough. It's just not enough. And he actually complained about it without complaining about it, technically. And that's what I'm here for, Kays. He said, educate. That's why I said this is going to be more of an educational one. This guy is corrupt. His entire country was, I think, I don't remember how many countries they rated. I want to say 150. We'll just say that number. It may not be accurate, but they were like 148th out of 150. Again, I just made those numbers up. I'm just saying how bad on the level of corruption he was. He was just horrible. So if the barometer is not corrupt and corrupt, he was the most bottom three. I don't even think Putin was that low. So what are we doing here? What are we doing here? When you've seen, I showed last week on or whatever day that was that I did it, you saw them doing the Vogue photo shoot. It's just all propaganda. From day one, it's been propaganda. They lopped a missile into, I think it was Poland, and then try to blame Putin. But then they found out, wait a minute, I think that was a U.S. missile or either a British missile. It's like, wait a minute, Putin doesn't have those. That was you. What does he do? No, it was Putin. It was Putin. To the point where I think it wasn't Milley, it was the other guy. What was the black dude's name? I can't remember the general. General Mark Milley and whatever his name was. An American literally said, even if that is our missile or if that is Ukraine's missile, it's still Putin's fault. He shouldn't have started the war. Huh? The Nord Stream pipelines were blown up. They tried to blame Putin. Turns out it was us. It was the United States of America who did it. There was no reason for him to cut off his own supply of oil from Germany. And why did Germany not say anything? We blew up a pipeline to try to cut off his supply to fuel. Didn't work. And here he is, still there. It's a stalemate, but he's taken over 20% of Ukraine. And we're saying it's possible that he can win. But look at him laugh. It's so funny. Oh, no.
Що він так не каже. Ми незалежна Україна, і мені здається, в час.
This is the most frustrating thing that he does. We're independent Ukraine. It's up to us. No, it's not. It's up to us, actually. Sorry. It's up to me. It's up to G. Will, Kays, Paul, Miss Phoenix. It's up to us. It's not up to you, dude. What are you talking about? Vibe in my lane. It's up to, well, Bolo. No, he's not American. It's up to Just Jay. It's not up to you. It seems to me that during this war, what does he say after that? Our people and I personally in negotiations with the United States and Trump and Biden. Let's finish this.
Із Трампом, і з Байденом, і з іншими європейськими лідерами довели, що ми, що з нами риторика «сідай і слухай» не працюючи. І це не через те, що ми такі, а через те, що так ми повинні відноситись в принципі до будь-якої країни, будь-якого народу, будь-якого лідера. Поважати. Це, в принципі, рівність, одна з цих цінностей, за які ми боремося сьогодні.
So, again, he's talking about his independence, but here's one of the lines that really got to Trump, and you could tell it got to Trump because that's where he was like, all right, I let this go on long enough. It's where he keeps saying that Americans are going to end up dying because if we don't fund him, our kids are going to end up dying for it. And that's where Trump was like, you can't say that. You don't say that. You don't tell us what we're going to feel. So this is before all this happened. He was already using that line. Again, propaganda. You just keep repeating the same stuff. And people start believing it.
The U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war. And they will have to fight because it's nature that we're talking about, and they will be dying.
That is not, it doesn't sound like a threat. That is a threat. That's saying, fund me or else. World War III will happen. Putin will take over Europe, and U.S. soldiers will die. No, that's not how it works. And to Miss Phoenix's point, you're not even in NATO. You're never going to be in NATO. You know why? We made that agreement already. I don't want to hear how important his kids are while threatening that I have to send my kids off to war. I don't know who his PR people are, but they're idiots. They're complete idiots if they think that that's a good message to send to me about my kids. No, it's not going to happen. It's not.
You think that it's respectful to come?
This is just a recap of what we already went over last week, but I think it's important to go back over it just so it's fresh in our minds how bad it really was. Because I don't know if people really understand how bad this was. This was on the international stage.
Come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will-
going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influenced.
We're going to feel
And
very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
you will-
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What do you-
III.
what do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
are you speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Your country's
Can I-
in big
can-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're
I
saying
said-
you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a
with
ceasefire.
guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
There was
How about you ask our people what we think? Why are we going to ask your people what they think? I don't care what your people think. I couldn't care less. They're not in the position they don't have the luxury of thinking. This man is speaking for me, and he's telling you respect the people who put me here, which is me. And this guy said, well, what about my people? Your people are dying, dude. They don't have much leverage. I don't want to hear about what your people think. It's not about that. It's about ending the war. No matter what your little ego says, I don't care about it.
Doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
you.
a guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy.
Yep.
And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that.
So back to what kind of the point I was making last week. His ego will not allow him to even say that they're losing, even though he's lost 20% of his own country. He's lost hundreds of thousands of men. He'll say, well, what about them? They lost more men. It's ego. What is that? What is that? So that's okay because you feel proud that your people are dying for the right reason. So you're going to continue to allow your kids die, the same ones that you complain that they're taking. You're going to continue complaining about that while saying, well, they've lost a lot more. And there was a point in there, I forgot to highlight last time, where Trump's like, you know, Russia's lost this, however many people. You guys have lost this, how many people? Russia's lost this, how many people? And he's like, well, they shouldn't have invaded. It's like, how old are you? What kind of response is that to death? And, you know, it's similar to the Gaza-Israel thing where, okay, Israel clearly has the advantage. Israel's clearly winning. But when we unalive citizens, at some point you say, okay, we need to restructure or think about this, rethink about this. Because the answer shouldn't be, well, they shouldn't have elected Hamas. They wouldn't all be dying. It's like, come on. At what point do we say, all right, that's not very pragmatic. You're way oversimplifying this. Yes, Hamas is hiding behind citizens. Okay, how do we infiltrate that and get those people on our side? We don't do that. Israel doesn't do that. We just kill them all and say, well, shouldn't let them behind them. And it's like, all right, when is there any kind of thought about human life? This guy does not care about human life. He's a sociopath. He wouldn't have laughed when the lady said, hey, Trump wants to negotiate peace. No, I don't think he said that. So you want this to keep going on. He does not care at all. Not just about the people of Ukraine. He doesn't care about us. And we're funding it all. He definitely doesn't care about Russians because they're the bad guy. So he's justified in hating. That's what this is. This is all hate and arrogance, ego. He's a maniac. And because he's little and doesn't wear a suit, and his country is smaller and the underdog, for some reason, millions and millions and millions of Americans say, oh, I stand with Ukraine. You don't even, there was a guy who was arguing, I forget who he was. He's like, most people can't name 3 cities in Ukraine, but we're sitting here saying, I stand with Ukraine. Send them billions more. It's a joke.
And indeed it was. President Trump kicking Zelenskyy out of the White House shortly after that, canceling their joint press conference. No rare minerals deal was signed, and the White House staffers, well, they eat the lunch that Trump and Zelenskyy were supposed to dine on. President Trump posting on Truth Social, it is amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelenskyy is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace.
I don't agree that he's a professional stand-up comedian. He was a terrible stand-up comedian. But yes, he did get paid, I guess, to do it. But the dude's a joke. I don't know if you guys have seen Jalen Clara Booker's wall, but she posted 3 videos of this guy. And I've shown you guys what he does and who he was before he got elected. But he's part of that community, and I believe that's why we put him in office there, because we installed him. They said he was elected, okay, yeah, after we overthrew the guy who was there before him. Was that a real fair election? He may have gotten voted in, but he would not have had we not overthrew the guy before him. Anyway.
He really showed his lack of interest in any real good faith negotiations. I can tell you there were a lot of conversations that were happening through different emissaries, both for Zelenskyy and for President Trump, leading up to his visit there to the Oval Office. And President Zelensky's immediate escalation there was frankly quite a surprise. This has created a huge rift in the relationship. President Zelenskyy, as you pointed out in the clips that you played, doesn't believe that he did anything wrong.
Yep. She was Secretary of State for Obama, and the rest is history. But that's our president now. That's what we're dealing with. It's a joke.
There was no issue with what he brought up in the Oval Office with President Trump. There's going to have to be a rebuilding of any kind of interest in good faith negotiations, I think, before President Trump is going to be willing to re-engage on this.
This morning, President Zelenskyy now claims he's ready to sign a minerals deal after being kicked out of the White House on Friday. But with the agreement in limbo, how long can his country realistically battle Russia without U.S. support? Break down for us kind of what you saw happening in that meeting.
What we saw during the press conference was calculated by President Zelenskyy and his chief of staff, Yermak. There was a 20-minute bilat before that where these grievances that he laid out in some detail were not discussed at that meeting. And that tells you something, because that's where it is appropriate to have grievances and disagreements. He made his case during the press conference. So what's going on there? They calculated that they were going to take their case to the American people, and as a result of that, put pressure on Putin to move him towards his positions. So what you can see it, and I watched it 3 times now to verify, was that true or not? And it is true. You can see it. He started with the tortured soldiers, and he made the case that Putin is evil. He also kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian children, and obviously Putin is evil. And then he looked for opportunities to talk. He wasn't being asked questions like the president was, so he spoke after the president's questions, and he took the floor himself just aggressively, and he lectured the president about how Putin can't be trusted. Look at the evidence, 25 ceasefires that he's violated, and he violated one when you were president. The president said, no, that didn't happen. Zelenskyy said, yes, it did during 2016. And the president stopped looking at Zelenskyy at that point and looked at the floor. And then he debated the vice president when the vice president was trying to say, you haven't thanked us at all during this meeting, and here we got a president who's trying to achieve a diplomatic solution here. And then he challenges him by saying, JD, what kind of a diplomatic solution? Then he goes on the offense again to make his point, not so much to JD or to the president, but to the American people. So the purpose of the meeting by Zelenskyy was completely different than the purpose of that press conference by the president. They came in and Zelenskyy was told this isn't going to take all that long. This is about celebrating the deal we're about to sign and telling the American people why this is good.
And remember, when I was going over this, when I don't remember what day it was, but when I was going over all this, I was saying this was not supposed to be this. It was supposed to be like 15 minutes, maybe 20. A brief summary of what's going on, and then why we're going into the minerals deal and how that contributes to the security of little Zelenskyy in Ukraine. And he used that opportunity to do what this general is saying right now. He thought it was a good idea to do what he did and to ambush essentially the president and the vice president with propaganda. He had a folder ready with photos. You remember I said that the other day. How is that in good faith when you didn't talk about any of this, but you have a photo of dead soldiers and children. I won't show this. It's too gruesome, too gruesome. So he's painting a picture. What's going on, IB? And it's clear that this was a setup, but it didn't work. It backfired. But in the end, Europe. Well, I'll wait on that.
For Ukraine, and why this is good also for the United States and the American people. That's what the administration had in mind.
Gotcha.
Zelenskyy had something completely different in mind, and that's why he pursued it. The administration knows this, and that's why they're frustrated. Not so much what he said, but where he said it and when he said it, and what he was trying to do to manipulate the American people.
So we were 40 minutes before the cameras came in and 45 minutes before the meltdown. And the fact was Zelenskyy.
So the reason why I'm doing this, I want you guys to have context as to how bad it was, what he was doing. All these people they have direct knowledge of what was going on. So they're saying, no, this guy's a trip. This dude's trying to manipulate our people and try to force us to give money via manipulating us so he can gain favor with us. This is insane. Who does this dude think he is?
He never stopped asking for, I will give no concessions. They've got to leave my land. I want reparations of $300 billion. And I want the United States to give me security guarantees while they're at war with Russia. And that's why the president called it World War III. You're gambling with World War III. We're not going to give you security guarantees while you're at war with Russia. It's just ridiculous. His requests were ridiculous. They were not reasonable. The president let it go for a while, he was there to make peace. Our president is there to make peace. As he said, end the death. And Zelenskyy was not there to make peace. He was there to strike some sort of make-believe bargain that he had in his mind. And eventually that just ran its course. And Donald Trump said, I can't take this nonsense anymore, and made it crystal clear he's the peacemaker. And if Zelensky's not interested in peace, then he should go home and think about it.
So to your question, where is it? Oh, to your point, IB. She's about to ask about that right now.
And that's what happened. He was asked to leave. I don't know exactly the language President Trump used, but he said, get the heck out of here. Do you think that Zelenskyy had met with Democrats before meeting with Trump, and basically they told him, stay firm, don't give in to anything, don't do the rare earth minerals deal?
I can't imagine that. Gosh, I hope not. I mean, that would be dreadful. So the fact is the president just wants to make peace. He tried to make peace. We had a beautiful lunch arranged. We had a signing, tables all set up. This was designed to be beautiful, right? And instead we had lunch by ourselves without the Zelenskyy crowd there, because they just did not come for peace. And our president's there, as he said, to end the death and to create peace. And that's who Donald Trump is, and he knows how to do it. He even said, you have to be reasonable to Putin. You can't say, Putin's a terrorist and then call the guy up and try to make peace with him. So you have to play balanced. Donald Trump knows how to be mediator. He knows how to arbitrate this, and he needs Zelenskyy on side, and Zelenskyy needed to hear it directly from the funding mouth of the United States of America. We're not going to give you money unless you're here for peace.
Now, and what makes this so diabolical, when you watch the speech, it puts things into perspective. It showed, to the point earlier, they won't stand for a kid with brain cancer. They won't stand for the mother of unalived girls by illegal immigrants. Nothing. They give nothing. That's the mindset. So when he was like, I hope not, to IV's point, I'm like, yep. Phoenix was saying the same thing. Who else? Paul. Everyone's like, yeah, that's most likely what happened. All you had to do was wait a few days and watch their reaction during his speech. And that showed you how bad it really is, how their hatred really is for him. Kash Patel's now moved into the FBI with Tulsi Gabbard over national intelligence. They are furious. They don't know what to do. They absolutely hate Trump. They hate the country. Now, would I say they want to see the end of the country? No. I think they hate the American people. They just want to do what they want to do. They love the power. It's why they were so easily able to make COVID rules. They hate the people. They want us to just shut up and dribble. Just follow what we see. We know what's best for you. That's what this is all about. It's why they have a tyrannical nature. And I agree with Catcher Mana Jagger on this one. They're not going to be able to do this. There's no way. There's no way. Now they're agreeing to do it. They're still not going to be able to do it. But it's always going to be Trump's fault. Always. It's just what it is.
Trump's.
Now, this guy, he annoys me so much. But now listen to his mindset. This is after, mind you, this is afterward. He's still talking about security guarantees. Idiot. Moron. If the United States government assigns contractors there to mine for those minerals that we were talking about the other day, that is security. One of them dies. We all know Trump's approach on this. We saw it. You harm one hair on an American soldier, I will blow up your home and kill you and your entire family. That's Trump's approach. That is the best possible security you can get. And instead of him thinking, because he's clearly not able to think, I believe he's got people either threatening him or guiding him as the president of Ukraine. Instead of him thinking, saying, oh, yeah, that is a pretty good guarantee, he keeps talking about, I need security guarantees. You're not in a place to get any guarantees. Who are you? How are you going to make guarantees with my money? It's so stupid that he keeps saying it, but listen to his mindset. This is after the fact. He's still, he's always going to be stupid, but he's still ignorant to what happened and the gravity of it.
Said after your meeting that you.
Sorry, yes. Not only does he want our Air Force, he wants a missile defense system like a dome, like an Iron Dome, because Israel has it. We should have it. Who are you? Why do you think you are allowed this or have a right to this? Who are you? You have done nothing for this country. Nothing.
You disrespected him and the vice president and all of America in the Oval Office. Do you think you did? And do you think you owe
He's not
an
gonna
apology to President Trump?
Spoiler alert.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for the invitation, for this dialogue, and good evening to all your country, to all Americans. I'm very thankful to Americans for all your support. You did a lot. I'm thankful to President Trump and to Congress bipartisan support. And I was always very thankful from all our people. You helped.
He did 2 speeches, one saying that this is not charity. We need more. Is that really thankful? Is that really So if somebody sends me, I don't have super chats yet. If somebody sends me a Cash App and I say, gee, Will, man, I appreciate that, but if you got $5 more, wouldn't you be like, damn? I know I would be like, what is this? I was in a live earlier and I heard somebody saying something to that effect. I'm like, you should be happy with $1. Like, how is it not enough? Who are you? Zero gratefulness. Like, and he did that speech on the congressional floor. I think it was the Senate floor. Like, who do you think you are to tell us, man, I really appreciate that at that point, I think it was $101 billion. Man, I really appreciate it. But we're in it for the long haul, and you guys really need to keep doing this. Because if you don't, we need a fresh wind. And if you don't, guess what? You're going to die. How is that saying thank you? This dude literally said that. You guys, that $101 billion is amazing. Just a few more years and we'll be good. But if you don't, it's going to be World War III and you're going to be the cause of the end of the world. All right. I guess that settles it. I'm a Christian. Gee, Will, you can attest to this. You get into an argument with somebody, as soon as they evoke God, it's like, okay, well, Now what? Well, God told me. Okay. How do you argue? Like, you can't do that. You can't shut down an argument with, hey, I appreciate it, but if you guys don't be nice to me and keep giving me gifts, because gifts is supposed to be an act of charity, not even charity. You're showing gratitude to a person. You're showing that you want to support the person. If you don't keep giving me gifts, you will cause the death of your entire country and the rest of the world. That's like that person who's, you're going back and forth with, well, hey, God told me this. And it's like, this is what we're doing? You just want to end the whole argument by saying something ridiculous. You can't disarm people from thinking. And that's what these people are trying to do. That's what he's trying to do.
Us a lot from the very beginning during 3 years of full-scale innovation. You helped us to survive. Anyway, we are strategic partners. And even in such tough...
How are we partners? You're fighting and we're funding it. What are we getting out of that? How is that a partnership? Strategic partners? You helped. No, we're doing it. We are at war with Russia right now. You're not. You're losing people, but you have no choice. We have a choice. So it's not a partnership. It's not. It's called proxy. You are fighting a war by way of us. Because if you didn't have the money, you'd be done already. You'd have been strung up somewhere, Saddam Hussein style or Gaddafi style. You have zero ability to fight without us, even with Europe. Without us, you have nothing. So we're not partners. Every time he uses words like that, I get annoyed. When my son wants to get something on Roblox, we're not partners. When he sends me a little request on his iPad, if he came to me and said, hey, I need this new skin for my this new avatar for for the game, for my character, I need you to partner with me in this. No. It's me. I'm funding it. You have nothing. You have nothing. Zelenskyy, you have nothing.
Dialogue, and I think we have to be very honest and we have to be very direct to understand each other, because it's for us very necessary to President Trump, and I'm with all respect that he wants to finish this war, but nobody wants to finish more than we, because we in Ukraine, we are in this war, we are in this battle.
No one wants to finish the war more than Ukraine, but we will not agree to a ceasefire. Square that for me. No one wants to end this war like I do, but there will be no ceasefire unless you guarantee me and my entire country security forever. How do I do that again? Exactly. Just keep sending you billions while your chief of staff drives around in really nice Bugattis and beautiful cars. This is insane. What he's saying is insane. I apologize, but I stand on it.
For
You're about to get timed out, IB.
So I'm just telling that I think that we have to be on the same side, and I hope that the president on our side together with us, and that is very important to stop Putin. And I heard from President Trump a lot of times that he will stop the war, and I hope he will, and we need to pressure him with Europe, with all the partners. And I think this dialogue had to be a little bit earlier to understand where we are.
This dialogue has been happening. You've heard Tulsi Gabbard say it. You've heard one of the advisors. You're going to hear Rubio say the same thing. What he said was not new. He just reintroduced his talking points. Once you get past those talking points, it's over, man. Leave it alone. You're not going to get those. I heard that. I heard the pressure him. We need to pressure him to work with Europe. Why? Because they're not paying enough. That's the only reason why we need to pressure him. IB. We need to pressure this guy because he's talking about limited funds. I need unlimited funds. Who are you? Why do you think you're owed anything? I don't understand why he thinks he's owed anything. Back to my son, he sends me a little, we set it up so he has to request, because this little fool, he tried to buy something for $800 on Roblox. So we had to set it up so he has to request, because that boy almost spent $800 on something, on that stupid game. So now he has to request and send, I'll look at it, 99 cents, all right, I'll approve it. $2, all right, I'll approve it. $5, hey, boy, what is this? What are you buying on this game? But if he tries to tell me, well, I need you to partner with me on this to get this skin, I'm going to be like, denied. This guy thinks he's a partner with the United States of America. You're not. You're a burden. Act like it.
I don't remember exactly, but like President Reagan said, that peace is not just an absent the war. Yes, we are speaking about just and lasting peace, about freedom, about justice, about human rights. And that's why I said that I think so, that ceasefire, and you know Putin, he broken 25 times ceasefire during all these years, 10 years.
So I'm not hearing from you, Mr. President.
Never answered.
I thought that you owe the president an apology.
No, I respect the president and I respect American people. And if, I don't know, if I think that we have to be very open and very honest. And I'm not sure that we did something bad.
So his answer is no, I don't owe him an apology. I respect him. But I think we need to be honest. And I don't think I did anything bad. That's what he just said. You came and disrespected the President of the United States, the American people, in the Oval Office, the most sacred place in this country. You came there and argued that we need to fund your war. And if we don't, you will be sending your kids to their death. That's what you did. How is that not disrespectful? This dude is insane. We should... I'll leave it because we're going to get to that. Wait till you see what Trump did. Trump is not an idiot. I know people hate him. I get it. I get it. He's not dumb. And one of the things that he always got called when he first got elected, oh, he's so dumb. You don't become a billionaire being dumb. You just don't. I'm sorry. You don't. They say, oh, well, somebody gave him, his father gave him $20 million. You don't turn $20 into millions. You just don't. You don't turn 20 million into billions. You just don't. Unless you kind of got to know what you're doing. You kind of got to learn that. You got to learn, okay, you got to fail, you got to succeed, and you got to work your way through it. But if you call somebody dumb who is that successful, you're an idiot. You're the dumb one. Because if that's the case, why can't you turn $1 into thousands or hundreds of thousands? You can't. You have to really know what you're doing, and you got to learn, and that's it. That's just what it is.
I think maybe sometimes some things we have to discuss out of media, with all respect to democracy and to a free media. But there are things that where we have to understand the position of Ukraine and Ukrainians, and I think that is the most important thing.
We just heard from President Zelenskyy. He said he does.
This one here is going to be the most insightful feedback. I like Ruben. He's got huge ears. You see the size of this dude's ears? Man, I'm looking at him like, hold on. His ears go from like here to here. Dude's got some flappers. Anyway, sorry.
Not think that he owes President Trump an apology for what happened inside the Oval Office today. Do you feel otherwise?
I do, because you guys don't see. You guys only saw the end. You saw what happened today. You don't see all the things that led up to this. So let me explain. The president's been very clear. He campaigned on this. He thinks this war should have never started. He believes, and I...
Hold on. My ear starts all the way up here from my mouth. You see the distance between my mouth and my ear? His is like right here, but then it goes all the way up here. Like his hair's hiding. If I had hair, man, dude's got some Dumbos. I apologize. That's That's childish.
I agree that had he been president, it never would have happened. Now here we are. He's trying to bring an end to this conflict. We've explained very clearly what our plan is here, which is we want to get the Russians to a negotiating table. We want to explore whether peace is possible. They understand this. They also understand that this agreement that was supposed to be signed today was supposed to be an agreement that binds America economically to Ukraine, which to me, as I've explained, and I think the president alluded to today, is a security guarantee in its own way, because we're involved. It's now us. It's our interests. That was all explained. That was all understood. And nonetheless, for the last 10 days, in every engagement we've had with the Ukrainians, there's been complications in getting that point across, including the public statements that President Zelenskyy has made.
That was all understood. It was made clear. He knew what was going on. He knew why this was a security guarantee. Giving us a vested interest in the region and putting our people there is a security guarantee. He knew it. He just didn't agree with it. Well, if you didn't agree with it, don't sign the deal. And he didn't sign the deal. Then he gets kicked out. And what does he do the very next day? Hey, okay, I'm ready to sign. Hey, guys, can I come back? No. No, partner. You can't. Sorry, business partner.
But they insisted on coming to D.C. This agreement could have been signed 5 days ago.
5
days
days
before. They insisted on
before.
coming to Washington, and there was and should have been a very clear understanding. Don't come here and create a such scenario where you're going to start lecturing us about how diplomacy isn't going to work.
So again, this is why I've always liked Rubio. I think he's a kind of a rhino. He's a really smart dude, but on some things he's like really bullish that he shouldn't be. But he's really articulate. What you just heard him say is they knew it. The deal could have been signed 5 days before this all happened. They requested to go to the Oval Office and do what he did. It was a setup. And I'm glad it backfired. The arrogance that he even thought that that would work was pretty astonishing, being that Trump won the way he won. You're not going to just bully a guy who has a mandate, who won popular vote. He won all of the swing states. Like I don't know why he thought he could come in and convince us by showing Trump pictures. Well, you guys are my partners.
President Zelenskyy took it in that direction, and it ended in a predictable outcome as a result. It's unfortunate. That wasn't supposed to be this way, but that's the path he chose. And I think, frankly, sends his country backwards in regards to achieving peace, which is what President Trump wants at the end of the day, is for this war to end. He's been as consistent as anyone can be about what his objective is here.
But what specifically do you want to see President Zelenskyy apologize for?
Well, apologize for turning this thing into the fiasco for him that it became. There was no need for him to go in there and become antagonistic. Look, this thing went off the rails. You were there, I believe. It went off the rails when he said, let me ask you a question to the vice president. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about? Well, this is a serious thing. I mean, thousands of people have been killed, thousands. And he talks about all these horrible things that have happened to prisoners of war and children, all true, all bad. This is what we're dealing with here. It needs to come to an end. We are trying to bring it to an end. The way you bring it to an end is you get Russia to the table to talk. And he understands that attacking Putin, no matter how anyone may feel about him personally, forcing the president into a position where you're trying to goad him into attacking Putin, calling him names, maximalist demands about Russia having to pay for the reconstruction, all the sorts of things that you talk about in a negotiation. Well, when you start talking about that aggressively, and the president's a deal maker, he's made deals his entire life, you're not going to get people to the table. And so you start to perceive that maybe Zelenskyy doesn't want a peace deal. He says he...
And this goes to this point. They're defending Zelensky's failure to convince America that we're his partners and that we're at fault and that we have to support him, which makes me believe what most people in here thought earlier. It was a setup. And I believe that he worked with the Dems, and they really genuinely thought that. And catch him out of Jagger. I think that person is treasonous to their country. Thousands of people have died since he did what he did. Thousands. I think they're saying like 2,000 a day or something like that. Something outrageous. Whoever this advisor was, outside of this country, because we know he had American advisors, but if he has somebody on staff who is responsible for thousands of deaths in Ukraine, that's treason. for their country. You cost thousands of lives. Absolutely, ain't nobody going to know Ukraine.
He does, but maybe he doesn't. And that active, open undermining of efforts to bring about peace is deeply frustrating for everyone who's been involved in communications with them leading up to today. And I think he should apologize for wasting our time for a meeting that was going to end.
She's frustrated.
You yourself have said previously that Putin cannot be trusted in negotiations. That was the point that President Zelenskyy was ultimately making during that conversation, is that there cannot be an agreement without security guarantees, because he was talking about all the ceasefire agreements before, or agreements that Putin has just blown past. I mean, do you still feel that way, that Putin cannot be trusted in these negotiations?
Well, I was there yesterday when the president said in front of the media that our approach is going to be trust but verify. President Trump's made deals his entire life. He's not going to get suckered into some deal that's not a real deal. We all understand this. We understand it on our end for certain. And so the goal here is to get to a place we have to explore whether peace is possible. I've said this repeatedly. I don't know. I think it is, based on what they've said so far. But we have to explore that. How else is this war going to end?
But if you're like Biden, the Democrats, and Zelensky, and you don't think that peace is possible, then why show up here and act like you want peace? Just keep fighting. If it's not possible to get peace, why try to do any deal? Which is why he sabotaged it. He doesn't believe it's possible, but he needs the money. So I got to make a case to the American people. No, you don't. You really don't. Just fight. At some point, you'll end up strung up somewhere.
People, what is the European plan to end this war? I can tell you what one foreign minister told me, and I'm not going to say who it was, but I can tell you what one of them told me, and that is that the war goes on for another year, and at that point, Russia will feel so weakened that they'll beg for a peace. That's another year of killing, another year of dying, another year of destruction, and by the way, not a very realistic plan in my point of view.
That's the Biden perspective. We'll wait it out. Just keep fighting. Keep fighting. Fight, fight, fight. He'll give up. At some point, he's just going to give up. Give up. Vladimir Zelenskyy, give up. You're not going to give up? Okay, Putin will give up. He'll give up at some point. Somebody's got to give up. But you want us to pay for it. Because the little guy says he's never going to give up. Okay, cool. We won't have peace. Putin, you got to give up. Please, somebody give up. Somebody give up. So it's a battle of two guys' egos. But one guy's willing to talk. The little guy's not. He said, what kind of diplomacy are you talking about? We can't have diplomacy. Then why are you here? What do you want? Just money? No. Now what? Go die. This is what you want. Go do it.
So if there's a chance of peace, even if it's a 1% chance, that needs to be explored. And that's what President Trump is trying to do here.
President Trump said just when he was leaving the White House after that meeting that he doesn't think President Zelenskyy wants peace. But isn't that why the Ukrainian leader was in the Oval Office for that meeting today?
Well, he was in the Oval Office to sign a minerals rights deal. That's what he was in the Oval Office to sign today. But again, when you have comments that deliberately appear to be after having discussed this repeatedly, deliberately appear to be geared towards making the argument that peace is not possible. Again, he turns to the vice president. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about? Almost as if to say, these people, you can't deal with them. You can't have any negotiations with Putin because he can't be trusted, and you're just wasting your time on negotiations. Well, he's basically undermining everything the president has told him he's trying to do. Look, there's no need for that. You start to suspect, does he really want an end to this war? Does he just think that, we have to do whatever he says and give him anything he wants without any end game? That was the Biden strategy. That was the Biden strategy. We were funding a stalemate. We were funding a meat grinder. And unfortunately, for the Ukrainians, the Russians have more meat to grind, and they don't care about human life. We've seen it, human waves, the North Koreans, etc. And so this is a very complex thing. It's very delicate. It's very costly. It's very bloody. It needs to be brought to an end, but it isn't going to be brought to an end with public pronouncements and maximalist demands in the public, but in real diplomacy. The vice president was right.
The United States is pausing all U.S. military aid to Ukraine until President Trump determines the Ukrainians show a commitment of good faith peace negotiations.
You're never going to beat Trump. Just stop trying, people. Leftists, you got to stop trying. You're not going to beat this guy. He signed an executive order. All right, You don't want to play ball? I'm going to make you play ball. We're pausing all funding to Ukraine.
But in real diplomacy, the vice president was right.
The United States is pausing all U.S. military aid to Ukraine until President Trump determines the Ukrainians show a commitment of good faith peace negotiations. That's according to a senior Trump administration telling Fox. This is not a permanent termination of aid. It is a pause. The orders are going out right now. The official said this in response to Ukrainian President Zelensky's conduct over the last week and his words over the weekend.
So here's what's crazy, right? We pause all funding to this war. Putin, of course, ramps it up. He starts dropping more bombs on him. Zelensky complains that he's dropping more bombs on him. What does Trump say? Yeah, that's what anybody would do. Zelensky is dealing with the direct consequences of his actions, and he still doesn't get it. He still doesn't understand. Even while they were talking, he said it. He's like, right now, we're here talking about peace, and Putin's still bombing us. Yeah, you're still at war. Why would he stop? Why is he just going to stop? Because you're over here while you're over here lecturing us. Why would Putin stop? This is a perfect time to keep dropping bombs. Why would he stop? So what does Trump do? Okay, this is your behavior. We're going to pause all funding to you guys. Let's see how you really do. See how you really fare. First thing he does, complain. Look. He's using ballistic. Yeah. That's kind of how it goes. It's weird when you don't have our money, isn't it? And it hasn't even really taken effect yet. Just wait. Let's get 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in. Let's see how arrogant you are in 3 weeks to say we're your partners. We're not.
So it's all stopping, Brian.
Yeah, well, he needs an apology. President Trump says, I need a direct apology. This can be fixed with a phone call. Sorry if things went off the rails, like the first 45 minutes of our talk.
I feel kind of bad because, again, there is a lot of unaliving going on, but it's this guy's fault. And what does Trump say? All right, apologize. Bend the knee, boy. You were really, really tough in the Oval Office in front of the world. Now you got nothing. Bend the knee, boy. That's what you're going to do. You're going to do it. Or you're not. Deal with it.
Didn't like the last 10. So let's get this thing back on track. I understand what you mean. And let's do it. And then you put the ball in Russia's court and let's see how sincere they are. But it's going to take a call from Zelensky to Trump directly. And I'm sure he'd take the call. The guy does not hold grudges.
He'll take the call. Well, what's best is that it's got to be a sincere apology. Put him in his place is the only way tyrants respect you. You got to put them in their place and show them you don't hold the cards. You are not the person with the leverage here. Call me when you're ready to talk. Apologize first, and I need it to be a sincere apology. And then we can get back to business.
I was looking around social media today, and it struck me that a lot of people who like to start wars are suddenly very angry with one guy who wants to stop this war. And there are people who have taken us into one disaster after another, war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, who have spent much of today on social media attacking Trump. What we're seeing, I think, is a reset of geopolitics, a reset. We're seeing the breakdown of what you might call the international liberal world order, which saw 20, 30 years of one foreign policy disaster after another. And Trump, I was at the inauguration in America, and people around the president are basically saying, they've had enough of that constant interventionism. They've had enough of Europe, by the way, again, maybe a controversial point, but Europe not paying its way on defence. And they've looked to Germany, they've looked to France, they've looked to Italy, they've looked to the UK, and they said, what are you guys doing? Take Germany as an example. Germany under the Greens, absolutely bonkers, becoming more dependent upon Russia because of its ridiculous energy policy, becoming more dependent upon China, and then turning around and criticising Donald Trump when he says we've got to end this war. I mean...
And what's so funny about that is Germany stops drilling so that they can go more green, and then they start buying more oil than they were drilling from Russia and China. That's what he's talking about. And they blew up their own. They allowed us to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, which hurt them, money wise. It's so dumb. And this is the only guy who got it. Everyone else there was complaining about Trump. He's so mean. And one of the things that really bothers the left, the trolling, is right here, Catcher. Catcher Matta Jagger said it perfectly. Bend the knee and kiss the ring. They don't like that he's winning and that they have to do this in order to move forward. They're going to fight with everything they got. And they're still going to lose. Hundreds and hundreds of accusations and lawsuits. You lost. Get over it. And he just got stronger and stronger and stronger. It's really, really funny.
I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense anymore. There are two things that need to happen. One is, Ukraine obviously needs to be involved in the negotiated settlement. That's obvious. But the second key point is this now has to be a line in the sand. After this negotiated settlement, Europe is going to have to pay to defend itself.
They can't keep making the point that how much Europe is in danger if Putin wins and not funding it. How do you can't do both? Those two things cannot be true at the same time. If you're under this threat from this guy, if he makes it out of Ukraine, then fund it. You can't say, yeah, but we can't even spend 3% GDP on defense. But we're all in grave danger. World War III. You can't do both. Because then what is the priority? What are you spending your money on? Oh, you guys have that universal health care. That's important for when Putin comes. None of their positions ever make sense if you follow them all the way back to the root of the problem and come to their conclusion. It never makes sense. We have the best healthcare in the world. Look at you, silly Americans. And then Putin invades another country. Oh, America, we need you. Maybe you should have probably used some of that money that you're wasting on getting everybody anything they want in their health system. Just a thought.
Not just rely on America. Because understandably, they're saying, look, we've got China. We've got our problems on the border. We've got to revitalize our economy. So I think for everybody who sat there criticizing Donald Trump, I do think we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and think, actually, are we getting this right here in Europe?
And to the President Zelenskyy joined EU leaders for an emergency summit on how to bolster Ukraine's security. The Ukrainian president telling those gathered that he hopes to have a, quote, meaningful meeting with the United States next week. And this, of course, comes as the White House says Zelenskyy has offered to sign a minerals deal. So for more on this, let's bring in CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joining us from the Pentagon. Charlie, good to see you. So what more can you tell us about this emergency EU meeting today?
Yeah, Caitlin, in essence, this is Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy going to Brussels asking the EU for a lifeline in the absence of support from the United States. He's drumming up support from members of the European Union for commitment. Now, so at the moment...
he's still walking around in that little suit, that little whatever that is. But we say, get out of here. Throw him out. Give the food to the staffers, the boom mic guy. So he runs right over to Europe. Hey, the people, I need your money. It's in World War III. He does the same thing to them. And they're going to have to, at some point, come back to us. But you got to give that apology, sir. Sorry.
27 members of the EU at least promised to fill that void that would see these partners, these individual countries, increase their military spending by loosening restrictions. So in theory, that would loosen up like $700 billion, which would dwarf any contribution that the United States has made. Perfect. But that's not in the bank, right? That's not a check. And this comes after, as you mentioned, this disastrous visit to the White House last week. Zelenskyy has called that regrettable. He said he's willing to restart talks with the U.S. And as he said, he says those talks will take place in Saudi Arabia next week.
So we know that they're willing to sign this minerals deal. I mean, the big question everybody has around town, at least here, is do we know where the administration stands right now on this?
I know where we stand. Apologize, boy. Bend the knee. Apologize not just to Trump. Apologize to Vance. I would make him apologize to the American people and to our media. It would be kind of mean to do, but I would do it anyway because he doesn't understand how mean it is for him to threaten us into paying for his war. You have to save me. There's zero gratitude in that. Zero humility. You have to save me. It's your duty to save me. Really? Well, we'll see.
Yeah, so President Trump was very telling in his address to Congress the other night on Tuesday that Zelenskyy had actually declared he's still willing to resurrect that deal for rare earth minerals. He actually said it came in a letter that day. Zelenskyy posted on social media he was ready to sign that deal and talk peace. But it's not clear yet. Maybe it's part of the negotiation, terms of the deal. But if it was the same one that they were discussing before, like last week, before things went south, that would see the Ukrainian government contributing like 50% of its revenues from their natural resources to like a U.S.-Ukraine fund. Part of that's like for reconstruction, and then also part of, I guess you'd call it payback for U.S. support for the war. But what is still an open question, and I don't think it's been resolved yet, is what Ukraine gets out of the deal, because they're looking for security guarantees, and that is an open...
What does Ukraine get out of the deal? Life. They get to live. What do you mean? What? See, this is CBS. So he's not very well. We still need to figure out what Ukraine gets out of this. The United States getting all these minerals. Yeah, we also spent over $200 billion on these people, and we kind of saved all of their lives. So part of gratitude is, hey, maybe we should try to help pay it back, because Biden lifted all of the loans. He made them all guaranteed. You don't have to pay them back. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay them back. So how would we get paid back? Apparently, this guy doesn't believe that that's necessary. But what does Ukraine get out of this? Life. That's what they get. They get to live.
Open question. I don't even think that was resolved last week.
It was resolved.
Yeah, and that comes, of course, as the U.S. has paused funding, and they've also, the CIA has confirmed that they've stopped intelligence sharing with Ukraine as well, at least for now.
Not just for now. It's going to be what it's going to be. That's all I really had for today. I'm again, this is way more nuanced than you're going to hear on the media, which is why I'm here. That's what I do. Believe me, don't believe me. I can back up what I say. Like I said before, I do lean to the right. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, share. I'd really appreciate that. I really do. If you'd like to provide a fresh wind, I'm going to get my Zelenskyy on. If you don't donate, something bad's going to happen to you and your family. I'm just kidding. No, I'm actually grateful. If you'd like to donate to the channel, please do. I will actually be grateful, and I will thank you. Every cent matters. I won't threaten you. I won't say that, I won't put a hex on your family. I won't say your kids have to die. I'm actually thankful when I get these donations. It's awesome. I think Zelenskyy needs to watch one of my live streams and be more like me. Vladimir. First of all, you have to grow a few inches. You probably have to. You got to at least get to 6 foot. Right? You got to dress better. You really definitely got to dress better. And when somebody gives you something, you got to not just say thank you and then start giving more demands. You actually got to mean it, and you can't threaten the person afterward. Have you ever give a homeless person food and they didn't want it? They really just wanted money? That's Zelenskyy. Follow me over here. I got some fights to watch. I got to catch up. I know I got to rewind. But I appreciate everyone. I genuinely do. Thank you guys. IB, Phoenix Rising, as always. Kachamatter Jagger, as always. K Soprano, G Will, of course. I'm gonna say Miss Phoenix Rising 3 more times. Who else was in here? Just J was in here. Bolo stopped by. I already said K's. I know there was more. Miss Highly Favored stopped by. That was pretty cool. Never seen her in here before. I think that was her first time. I believe that's everybody. Vibe in my lane. Appreciate you. Let's see. Who else was in here? IB, thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man. Genuinely appreciate you. Paul Thomas, thank you. IB, come back or your family will die. If you don't share this live, Taryn the Black was here. Appreciate you. Do not spoil the fights, please. I think I said Miss Just J already. All right, thank you guys very much. I'm gonna go watch these fights. If you guys don't like, share, and subscribe, your kids will suffer horrible lives. The rest of their lives, they'll be tainted with bad luck and juju.